Hey y'all, it's Gaming Granny coming at you, and this is Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War. Trigger warning, this is a violent video game with blood and guts and gore. If that's not your scene, that's cool. You can do a few things. You can either head on out and give us a thumbs up on your way out. You can give us a thumbs up and go look at some of our older stuff. Or I even had a sub tell me that she would sit where she didn't have to see the screen, but could just listen to me talk. Alright. Disclaimer. This video, the views and opinions in this video are mine and mine alone. This video is made for entertainment purposes only. Do your own research, come up with your own conclusions, your own beliefs. Now, tonight we're going to have an extra trigger warning, which I'll give now. Okay. What we're discussing tonight is the Delphi murders that happened in Delphi, Indiana. So, if true crime or bad things happening to children trigger you, please don't watch us. I beg you. If hearing about things like that really affect you, do not watch it. It's not worth it. Okay? You deserve to have your peace of mind as well. Everyone's mental health is important. Okay, shout outs. Sean and Mel. They are a music reaction channel. Check them out. I'm going to put a podcast on here, and it's called the Murder Sheet Podcast. And it's out of Indianapolis, Indiana. So, and if you're looking for live coverage of true crime, Law and Crime has a YouTube channel that's pretty good. Alright, so now we're going to try and get started on the topic, and I'm going to see if I can find us a game here. Alrighty. This story is about the murder of two little young girls that were in junior high school, 8th grade. It was February 13th, 2017. They were out of school that Monday. I'm not sure, I mean, you know, it was like the whole, school district was off that day, so I'm assuming it was like a teacher work day or whatever. So when she heard her big sister, well, I guess I should tell you the girls' names a little bit first. So they were home. They had a sleepover the night before. And their names are Abby Williams and Libby German. Now, Libby had an older sister named Kelsey. And that Monday morning, she heard Kelsey sing. So she asked her grandma if they could get a ride in with Kelsey to go to the trails and hike. And her grandma said yes, but told her that she would have to have a ride home confirmed before they could go. So she texted or called her dad, I don't know which one, but she got a hold of her father, and he told him that he would pick him up, and he gave him, 3 o'clock at a certain spot, at a certain parking lot. And so they went and got in Kelsey's car, and Kelsey dropped him off where she was supposed to drop him off on her way to work. Now, the girls loved to be outside, and the parents actually, her grandparents were raising her, Libby and her sister. The dad was living with them too, but the dad and mom both had drug issues, and it's a huge meth area, or it was at the time. So the grandparents had custody and were raising them, but the dad was there. And even though the mom wasn't there physically, she was on Snapchat and several Snapchat and several other apps that the girls were on, and she talked to Libby and Kelsey every day. So the girls were out hiking, and they were going to be picked up by her dad, okay? Her dad got there on time, where he said he would be, at the parking lot he said that he would meet him at. So he was in the parking lot waiting on them, and he called Libby's phone to see if he could, get her to answer it so he could find out where they were. Maybe they just didn't get back to the spot where he was. Maybe they were on their way there. Maybe, one of them got hurt. He didn't know. So he was trying to reach the girls by using Libby's phone. So, and he could not get Libby to answer the phone. Which was strange, because Libby always was glued to the phone. As a matter of fact, the night before, they'd been playing on Snapchat. The girls had downloaded several videos, including a couple ones of them singing or whatever. But for her to not have her phone where she could get to it was unheard of. So, about 3:45 or 4, her dad called her grandma and asked if they had heard from her. And the grandma said no. Why isn't she where she's supposed to be? And he said, no, she ain't here. I've been waiting. I've tried to call her phone. I can't get an answer. And the grandma said, well, give me a minute. I'll try, and then I'll call you back. She didn't get no answer neither. So she called the dad back, and the dad told them to call the cops. So the grandparents who had custody called the cops and told them that they had 2 missing teenagers in the trails. And so the cops went out and met with Libby and Kelsey's dad, who was sitting there waiting for them girls still. But he was really nervous and upset because they hadn't heard from them. And no matter what they seemed to do, they couldn't get her to answer the phone. So, they searched and walked around some on the trails that evening, but when it started to get dark, the police called it for the night and asked everybody to come back in the morning, and they told them to try and get some sleep because, you know, they didn't know where the girls were or anything, but they had to look for them. But they didn't want to get a bunch of other people lost too, you know. And this area of trails is a pretty good size area. I have not been there. And at one point there's a creek that runs through it, Deer Creek. It's in Carroll County, Indiana. And the city that's closest is Delphi, I guess, which is only 3,000 people big. So it's tiny. So, the next morning, the dad, the grandparents, go back out to help look for the girls. Abby's mom goes to the fire station, and she has Abby's coat with her. And she's thinking, you know, one of them got hurt. They're gonna find them, bring them in, and, you know, then they will be cold and she'll need her coat. Well, mid-morning, the grandma was sitting, and her sister came up to her, and all her sister could say was, "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." And a minute or so later, they saw a coroner's van drive past. And they knew there was only one reason a coroner's van would be there. So they knew the girls had been found dead. And before the day was out, they knew they had been murdered. Abby's mom, since she was at the firehouse, the pastor for the firehouse came down and was come downstairs, and he asked her, he said, "Has anybody talked to you?" And she said, "No, not for a while." "Why?" He said, "Well, come on upstairs. I want to talk to you a little bit." Well, she went upstairs with him. And when they got up there, some of them told her that Libby and Abby were dead, that they'd found them. So now the girls were found dead, and Libby was naked. Abby was partially clothed or completely clothed, I'm not sure, but they did find Libby's clothes seemed a little odd, but and they'd been found about 3/4 of a mile from this bridge, this railroad bridge. It was called Monon High Bridge. Yeah, it was an old planked bridge that people really didn't like their children playing on it at all. And as a matter of fact, Abby's mom, when she found out that they were on the bridge, because somebody had posted, Libby had posted a Snapchat picture of Abby walking across the high bridge. And they really weren't supposed to be in that area doing that. So now this is you know, they found this, she saw the Snapchat of the girls on the bridge, and she said she was waiting at the fire station before they told her what had happened to the girls, to hear from the girls, or you know, that they had found them, that they were just injured. One of them sprained an ankle, something like that, you know, not this crazy murder crap that they ended up in. But the girls were on the other side of the river, 3/4 of a mile from where they had been. But from the evidence they had gathered, they were on the bridge around 2-something. And it would have led them to the trail that would have taken them to where they were supposed to meet Libby's dad. So they at some point within a day, later that day or the next day, they released the video that Libby took of a man who was on the bridge when they were. So, they released this footage of this man on the bridge that the girls had posted to the public to try and get help recognizing him. And they started calling him BG for Bridge Guy. And they did a composite roughly off of the video. Now, we're pretty sure that the killer did not, for whatever reason, see the camera or know that he was being taped. Because if he had known, he probably would have took the camera with him when he was done. After they were dead, you know. I don't know how they kept from him finding out that they had taped him or anything. Nobody really knows. But it would seem that he didn't know because, I mean, why would he take time to, you know, try to do any of this stuff to make sure that it was covered up? But he really didn't try to cover it up. Thing you have to look at, because I mean, these were two girls. One was, I think they were 13 and 14. And yeah, so, you know, they were just young girls. So they posted this video of him. He's on the trail on the bridge with the girls. And it's about the same area where Libby had posted the Snapchat from just a few minutes before that. And the little clip that they released of him, the man said, guys down the hill. Well, I've watched several documentaries now, and I can tell you that that hill was very steep. Very steep. And it was not it didn't look like it would be easily gone down. But on the video, on the little clip of video that they released, and that's all they would release. They didn't release the cause of death, manner of death, none of that. Until much later. They released that, I want to say, in 2021 or 2022. So 4 or 5 years after the crime, they released more of the video that that Libby took. After she had sent the picture to Chap's Snapchat that she took of Abby. And when they released the longer clip, at one point in the clip, you hear one of the girls say, "Oh man, he's got a gun." Now, fast forward to this year, 2023. This is November. This just happened in October. They got probable cause. They arrested someone. His name is Richard Allen. Now, he swears he's innocent. He didn't do it. And that something called Odinists are the guilty people. I don't know the Odinists. I don't want to know it. That's none of my business. That's neither here nor there. Okay? Him and his lawyers are playing it smart and trying to create reasonable doubt with that crap. That being said, there was a bullet that had not been shot, but had been ejected from a gun. A Sig Sauer .40 caliber. And that bullet was found within 2 feet of the girls' bodies. And Richard Allen owned a Sig Sauer. And they got probable cause, got a probable cause warrant for the man. And they went to his house. They took several cartridges that belonged to that gun. They took that gun. They took several other guns he had. He had quite a few guns that they didn't know he had. So that was interesting in itself. Now, and they got several coats, jackets, sweaters, gloves, hats, face masks, you name it. They picked up a bunch of that kind of stuff at his house too. Now granted, this is 5-6 years after the crime. This man kept everything. He kept his clothes that he supposedly was wearing. So the police, after they got all the stuff from the warrant and stuff, they had locked him up in jail. And he had a tablet in jail that he was making phone calls from to the outside. And in one of those calls, actually in several of those calls, he made admissions to his wife and mother. His wife abruptly hung up because she knew it was being recorded. And even as he's in court, his wife and his mom are still standing beside him and saying there's no way he did it. When they searched his house with the probable cause warrant, they also found a cache of knives that he owned. And they warrant as well. So now they're in the pre-trial phases, and like I said, he's saying he's innocent. But he did leave recorded phone calls with his mom and his wife that made it, he incriminated himself in them. We just put it that way. Now, he is going to be going to trial, and so there will be an update to this at some point. But I can't even begin to imagine what it was like for those 13 and 14-year-old little girls. And I know it's awful, and it's been really awful, especially for Abby's mom, because she has absolutely no other children, as far as I know. And so she will never have grandchildren or anything. And she said that was one of the first things that the day they said that people was saying the day was hard when you find out. But really, that wasn't as rough as the next few days, she said in an interview in a podcast by a writer that wrote murder stories for a living. She went to Delphi and went to the bridge and went to all these places. So if you type it in the YouTube search, you'll get a bunch of stuff, including her documentary. Because I can't really think of it right now, and I can't really think of her name either. But, so he's on trial, and they consider what he said to his mom and his wife confessions. But the defense team is saying no, it wasn't. He was in a bad place because everybody was giving him a hard time in the jail. Well, just a thought. Maybe you should have thought about that before you did what you did. Because we all know what happens to people who do those kind of things to children. I mean, the dressing and the undressing and leaving one of them naked definitely spells out some kind of a sexual motive. And that in itself is, you know, heart-wrenching. I mean, think about it. You're just out with your girl, your best friend. You're walking on this bridge. She takes a picture of you and puts it on Snapchat. And then a couple minutes later, a guy comes up to you and tells you to go down the hill and you find out he's got a gun. Now, there were some staging and posing when the girls at the death scene, but we don't know if they died there or if they died somewhere else and were moved there. It's very hard to know. This guy went in jail. He was saying that they, were doing, screaming child killer and all that at him and stuff. And I did see in that one documentary when they were doing, he was doing, he was there for a court appearance or something. And somebody was yelling at the press conference, child killer, baby killer, that kind of thing. So I'm sure he is getting some of it in prison. But any of them that's done stuff like that to young girls, usually gets that kind of treatment in jail. Literally. And if you're going to do something like that, that's what you should expect. I mean, look, some of them's even, Jeffrey Dahmer barely made it through his trial before some guy took a weight and beat the shit out of him and killed him in prison. If they'll do that to him, they'll do that to anybody, won't they? Mm-hmm. That was where that one was up in that building there. But I don't see the person that was, that, oh well, they set it off so it killed them. Duh. Well, there was one. So, he was saying because of being bullied, and he was saying the warden even was calling him out about that now. But the other inmates, yeah, I would expect that from other inmates, especially if they were fathers of children, especially girls' children, Where'd you go, Red? Yeah, I mean, so it's going to be interesting to see what else comes to light and that kind of thing as he continues this trial process. But, you know, I'm just going to say this one, you know, a couple times. If you are going to do something like this, be prepared for the consequences when you do get to jail. Because it won't take long for people to find out what you did or what you're accused of doing. Like I said, in this case, he's, you know, saying he... The other thing I would say is, once you're in jail, don't expect the phones to be private. Because you know they're recording everything. They don't care if it's your lawyer. They don't care if it's a Supreme Court justice. If they call a prisoner, they're going to be recorded. So, that's another thing people need to keep in mind. Because it absolutely blows my mind that somebody be dumb enough to do that. Okay? Alright. Well, I think that's going to do it. So, if it turns out good and it's not too long, I'll let it go. But I don't know. It may be too long. It just might. I was really wanting to try to keep it down to about a half hour, but I don't think I can with this topic, so I don't know. I may have to let it go a little longer than I planned. So, and if there is new stuff that comes out on this again, while he's on trial or whatever, I will try to remember and do an update. Much that is part of it, but it's just so... For me, it's just beyond, because I can't believe that people are still doing these things. And then, you know, that son of a gun, he's gonna take my gun out, and I don't even know where I'm at now. I mean, I know I'm on the board still, but I don't know where I'm at on the board. That's something, and as much as I played it. But anyway, so like I said, I will try to get an update if more becomes available. But that's how it is right now with it. Alright, so I'll catch you in the next one. Laters.